Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us today. Thank you for being here as we are opening up an incredible, important conversation, mental health in the entertainment industry. Whether you're tuning in from the world of film, music, theater, esports, or simply having a passion for mental health, we are so glad you are with us. This webinar was born from an understanding that behind the glamour and the creativity of the entertainment world, there are real people facing mental health challenges. Far too often, those working tirelessly behind the scenes don't get the space to talk about what they're going through, to be heard, or to be supported. So today we want to change that by opening the doors to honest conversations. We've brought together an incredible group of panelists, performers, musicians, advocates, each with their own unique insights into the pressures of the industry and the importance of mental wellness. Our goal is to learn, reflect, and grow together, creating a space that is inclusive, respectful, and full of hope. So, without further delay, it is my pleasure to now hand over to our host, Jani, a professional actress and a passionate advocate for mental health and a board member of the Global Mental Health Peer Network. Over to you, Jani.
Thank you so much, Zak, for that lovely introduction. Hi, my name is Jani van der Westhuizen. I'm a South African professional actress and board member of the Global Mental Health Peer Network. It is my honor today to introduce these amazing guests. Thank you, first of all, for accepting our invitation to be on this important platform to discuss stigma, mental health issues, and things that we would definitely or most certainly get cancelled for if we should discuss them on other platforms. So today we've got Sibongile Mngoma, Johan Engelbrecht, Yvette Hardie, Jack Devnarain, and Pops Mohamed here. Welcome to you all. I think let's start. I just have a few questions for each speaker, but before that, can you kindly just briefly introduce yourself? We'll start with none other than our diva, Sibongile.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sibongile Mngoma, born in Soweto 1,000 years ago, and grew up in KZN 900 years ago, and went on to UCT some 700 years later. And now I am back in Johannesburg. I'm a performer, a director, teacher, producer, someone who's just passionate about the arts. And I advocate for other artists, help where I can. But more importantly, I just love the stage and what it brings and what it can do and the impact it can make. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then next up, we've got Johan, if you like.
I've been around longer than most people would imagine. I can say my career started a half a century ago. How's that? So you were talking about 100 years ago. I, as a young person, had certain ambitions to fulfill certain, I think, creative needs, I want to call that. And because of that, I mean, on school level, I participated in operettas and in plays. I mean, we even had the privilege to do a Shakespeare at school with an ex-Stratford-on-Avon actress who fell ill and she ended up in a wheelchair. So we had the best training at that kind of a level. I had ambition to become a stage designer, a costume and set designer, which I fulfilled, thank God. I had dreams of being an actor. And I ended up for the Performing Arts Council alone, and not only with the festivals, including with the festivals, I think about 85 plays, which ranged from Shakespeare right through to contemporary plays. And I had a dream to be a rock star. And I did rock musicals. I sang Che Guevara in Evita. I sang Judas and Jesus in JC Superstar. And I did 2 seasons of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, where I sang the narrator. I think it was after I did it for Capac that they turned the part into a role for female. I never, because it's currently done by women, I had no ambition to write a novel, and I did. I had no ambition to do a lot of things in my life. I became a television producer by default. Where somebody said, don't you just want to travel there and go and shoot something because we've double booked? And then when I came back, they said, can we offer you a job? And I ended up doing that for 9 years in Europe. So I've had a blessed life. I really had. I've had a blessed life. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Johan. And Yvette, if you like.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Yvette Hardie and I'm currently in Joburg, but I actually live in Cape Town now. And I'm up in Joburg because I'm here with a beautiful performance called Pieces of Me that Bo Peterson is making, which is the story of her life. And I think that in so many ways, that's why what draws me to theatre is it allows us to tell these deeply personal stories, often very painful stories, often the stories of our trauma, the stories of the things that we've had to survive, that we've had to get through in order to be the people that we are today. And it's been my privilege to be involved in projects that speak the truth about what people go through, and that really kind of throw a light on the experiences that we have as South Africans. So I work with Asseter South Africa, which is all about theatre and performing arts for children and young people. I've been very involved with education over the years, but my passion has always been the theatre. Apparently, when I was 4, I was saying to my father, I'm going to be an actress and a writer. And I have the proof of that because I've got the Christmas letter that my parents wrote. You know, in those days, they used to write these awfully embarrassing long Christmas letters to everybody and tell them everything about the family. So anyway, I have had a long-standing love affair with the theatre, and it's been a wonderful space to be in. But I think it's because of this, the fact that it allows us to tell these really important personal stories. So thanks for the opportunity to be here, Jani and Zach, and everyone at Global Mental Health.
Thank you so much, Yvette. I get emotional because when I started my career at the National School of the Arts in 1994, when Mandela was released, Nelson Mandela, Yvette was my first drama teacher. And later we also worked together on a Mike van Graan, Is It Because I'm Jack? And then in lockdown, we also saw each other a lot because of meeting, but we'll hear all about I Am for the Arts and the Stand Foundation a bit later. Yeah, so this is an honor to also hear your yes, I get emotional because of the inspiration. Thank you, Yvette. And then Jack.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Devnarain. I'm an actor and I serve on the executive committee of the South African Guild of Actors. It seems more than acting. I think a lot of the work that I do nowadays is being an activist. And I've reached a point in my life where I can feel almost a confluence of the years that I spent in the police force, the years that I spent as a professional actor, have all somehow conspired to give me access to certain conversations now that I may not have had access to without those years of experience in the civil service and working as a professional actor. It's almost as if you need to earn the right to hold certain opinions. You need to earn the right by being in certain places, by doing the job, before you can stand up and speak with any authority about whether it's mental health or whether it's about actors' rights. So I feel so honored to be part of this panel, not only because this is a privilege to learn from so many experienced creatives, but also to be able to share what I've learned from my own personal background, my career, my history. To the extent that it can, I hope that it can make a difference to someone's life.
Thank you so much, Jack. I also know Jack very well from working hand in hand with him with children's rights in the professional child actor sector, which is another whole conversation and webinar. So we're just still waiting for Pops, and then I'll let him introduce himself. But I'd also like to continue to just start with each speaker and really deep dive into their life. Sibongile, if that's okay, if we start with you again. I wanted to ask you around the world of opera, jazz, and growing up specifically in a musical home, and how that's played out for you, and any of the challenges that you faced, because it's quite different from normal artists. You were groomed from a very young age to be in this industry. So you feel free to tell us all about that.
Whew. Okay. It's a tough conversation to have because, look, here I am. I come from this family of well-known performers, and the narrative is always, yeah, this is we grew up like this, and what people never talk about are the difficulties of the expectation. Growing up in a family of overachievers, where you're expected to get up at 5 in the morning, practice your instruments even before you go anywhere as a young child. So your childhood is influenced more by music than anything else. And by the time you hit matric, you don't want anything to do with the stage because you started too young. And yes, it's great, it's wonderful, and people desire this thing, but I didn't want it. I just wanted to do something different. And that's why when I matriculated, I went and studied law. I didn't even try music or drama or anything. I went straight for law. I studied B.Proc at the University of Zululand because I got tired of practicing my violin, practicing the piano, practicing the this and the other one, and going to school and the teachers forcing you to sing in the choir. Look, I don't doubt that I have a voice that can sing, but I didn't want to sing on a serious note. I just wanted to play with my friends. And so when I had the option and I had the agency, the first thing I did was I grew my nails because I just wanted to not have to play an instrument. And my grandfather nearly lost his mind. He was like, what is wrong with this child? You are literally the concert master of this children's orchestra, and there you are growing your nails. I couldn't care less, for real. I just wanted to be a young person with normal young people issues. Age 9, I get my first Attica prize because I was a good actress in an Afrikaans play in Zululand, where we couldn't even speak Afrikaans. Here I am getting an award at 9. Are you kidding me? Do you understand how difficult my childhood was? I mean, and then 12, I am doing my first UNISA exam. For real? Are you kidding me right now? I don't want any of this. I just want to be a child. And literally, you find yourself now growing up in the principal's office, not because you were in detention or you were being punished, but because half the time you are being homeschooled in school, because now your parents feel like you need the school experience, but a lot of your education is happening in the principal's office because the grade you're in is just not where you're at. I'm that child who, by the time I went to school, I could read and write. So how do you teach me in a classroom with other kids? By the time they introduced music at our high school, I'm that child who every child hates because I'm getting 100% in my tests and exams. So nobody wants to study with me. I'm that undesirable child. So yeah, it wasn't as glamorous as it sounds that I was a child protege, but as much as that is, with all that being said, I remember sitting with Tito Mboweni because he was a good friend, and he said to me, but you know, as a black child who was previously disadvantaged, how is it now to function in this space post 1994 when now people are voting and now you can go on the opera stages and what? I said to him, look, I'm one of those kids who can honestly say I was not previously disadvantaged. Yes, my skin may have seemed like a disadvantage, but I had all the advantages of someone who grew up without the impediment of my hue. So I had everything that other kids had that were not growing up in a township. We had a piano in our lounge, and I started playing the violin at a very young age, so I wasn't disadvantaged. As a person who was born in 1970, when you speak like English like this, people judge you. They're like, what levels of coconut are this? What are you? Where did you grow up? Where were you born? That you grew up speaking English like this. People your age don't speak like that. And it still happens. Like people will ask, where did you grow up? Are you from America? What happened? But the thing is, what was I exposed to? Who was I exposed to? Who was talking to me, who was speaking into my life at a given time. So it wasn't as easy as it seemed. And it was a difficult one when I broke into opera, when my aunt was just breaking out into the jazz world. And now suddenly there are two Sibongile Mngomas and people want to know which one. So that's when she became Sibongile Mngoma Khumalo, because she was married. Now here's the young one. She's now coming out as an opera singer. She's now known as a jazz singer, but she wants to break into opera because that's what she wanted to start with. But the disadvantage of being black didn't allow her. UCT didn't take her. She auditions and they turned down her audition because she's black. And so when the time comes and she gets the opportunity, she goes for it. Now you've got two Sibongile Mngomas who are now opera singers, and both of them can also sing jazz. So it's really confusing on so many levels. So no, it wasn't easy. And yes, there's a lot of privilege there. And there's also the pretty girl privilege that comes with having a face that looks a certain way, and people don't believe that you can actually sing. And I've been told a lot of times, oh no, you got where you are because you have a pretty face and you speak good English. And I'm like, okay, if my pretty face and my good English can go on that stage and do the role without me singing, then we're good. Can that happen? No, it can't happen. So no, yeah, it's been good and bad. So my journey has been one mental breakdown after another waiting to happen. And I've had those mental breakdowns, and they have led to a lot of mental health problems. And I always share this openly, that my entire adult life, I've had to contend with mental health issues because of the pressure and the expectations. And at some point, I even believed I was a fraud. I was waiting for someone to unveil and say, look, she lies. She can't do any of the stuff she does. But here I am, 54 years old, and I can still do the stuff that I was doing when I was 24. So it might not have been a lie after all. I'm only now starting to embrace it and say, okay, I am as good as they say I am, but it's because I'm older and I don't feel like it's got anything to do with ego, but I'm just looking at the proof.
Ngiyabonga Siswe, you're moving my heart in my chest. I also wanted to ask you, thank you for sharing, first of all, that vulnerability around, I first saw you during lockdown, other than being a fan, but in a vulnerable situation in lockdown during the March for I Am for the Arts. Can you tell us about I Am for the Arts? What made you start that and that journey for you during lockdown?
I started for the Arts when I arrived in Bloemfontein. So I arrived in Bloemfontein in October because I needed to get out of Johannesburg and the rat race and the pressures of the industry, and people always just fighting you for being you. And when I arrived in Bloemfontein, it was a difficult adjustment to make. But in January, it was even before lockdown, I realized that there's a lot of people like me who have been suffering quietly, and we go through it and we don't share it. But I felt like I was at a point in my life where it didn't scare me to come out and be vulnerable. So I created For the Arts as a platform for the voiceless, so that people can come out and share what their frustrations are. And at the time, I remember one of our tenors had committed suicide. So people just didn't have an outlet. And when we talk to other people, they make it gossip fodder. So I figured, you know what, if we all come out and we say, I'm struggling and I'm going through this, people don't feel so alone. So I created that platform for that. But over time, different people started saying, why don't you do it like this? Why don't you do it like that? And that was a struggle for me, because For the Art was never meant to be some type of organization or whatever people were doing at the time. It was just meant to be a safe space like what we are doing right now, where people can just talk and vent and maybe speak, and somebody's listening and they can assist. So yeah, that's how For the Art started. And I'm now bringing that back, where literally I'm saying it's okay to actually open up here. And over time, I've also been asked to mute people who say things that are undesirable. But that was the whole point of the platform, was to say the undesirable things and say the uncomfortable truths that people are afraid to talk about. I mean, it's okay then to say that at For the Arts and not feel like you're being judged, because now people will say, oh, you're being this, you're being the other one. It should be okay for us to say, yes, there's access that still needs to be created for those who still are denied access. I mean, there's a lot that's going on that proves that the system hasn't changed as yet.
So very true, and we are totally rooting for you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing all of that. Let us move on to Johan. Wanted to ask you your experience working with the youth and teaching, and also any personal experience that you might have had, especially when so me and Johan are quite close friends. And what I found interesting about his actor's story is playing characters with mental health problems. So my specific question would be, how do you, as Johan, navigate that method acting with a character that has a severe mental health issue, and then the Johan that goes home being with Johan alone? Can you tell us about that experience?
Do you know, it was funny, it was round about there. It was the opening season of the State Theatre that they cast me in the one part of the other. First, it was Chucky and Sinner in his suburbs, who was a psychic, and how his abilities to see things were abused, and it also ended in a self-death. So it was that I played Oswald in Ibsen's Ghost, who had syphilis, and the brain bag was shrinking, so he started losing his faculties. I was typecast in a season. In a matter of a year, I played a lot of people with very complex emotional problems, existentialistic problems. I even played John in The Lion in Winter, who was written as an imbalanced character. The thing is, I think with acting, studying acting, they make it very, very complicated. It's only now that I'm much older and I've trained a lot of people in acting skills, where I said to them, they try and tell you this is very difficult, but it is in actual fact easy. You have to just have a bit of an imagination. You have to go, if that was me. You know, it's not an out-of-body experience which you have as an actor. I'm not that keen on the method thing, because I believe it should be in the moment. It should be spontaneous. It should be now. I did, for instance, work with the Royal Shakespeare Company when they were here. And one of the things they told me, which was rather quite shocking, is never to recall a performance. It has to be in the moment. And they do fine their actors if they repeat an intonation or a scene exactly the way that they did it before, because then you are recalling a performance. You're not in the moment. So that was quite a lesson for me, because I relied, and I'm going to be honest with you, for so many years, because I was inexperienced on technique. You know, I would go work, oh, this is going to work, this is going to work, this is going to work. And I actually spoiled the fun of being creative in the moment for myself by anticipating performances. It is only now that I go, I'm going to make sure that I'm off script and I know it backwards. I know the context of it, but I'm not going to think of a performance that's going to happen right here. And that is the exciting thing. And that's when you can sustain your performance over a long period, over a season. Because back in the days, I mean, we used to perform 6 weeks of an Afrikaans drama in the State Theatre and then move it over to the Alex Theatre. So you had at least a 10-week run. I mean, I was involved in, when I sang Judas and JC Superstar, a run that lasted 6 months. We're not that used to that in South Africa at all. And then instead of it becoming a technical thing, is find ways to keep it fresh. And also to not, you have to find ways of de-rolling. I used to say to people when I sang Judas, he screams from the moment he arrives on stage, and when he goes home, he just screams the whole time. I go, but by the time I get home, I'm so relaxed, because I took all my crap out on an unsuspecting audience. You know, they felt victim to my tantrums, you know. So there is a huge therapeutic thing within being an entertainer. But the fact that they typecast me, when I started complaining about saying, I think there's more to me than playing these characters. They diversified quite a lot. But as I mentioned earlier, before we started the conversation, there was somebody, my sister had a serious mental problem. And it was back in the days where they were so ignorant about what was called manic depression was in the day, that she underwent 12 shock therapy sessions, and they just erased big parts of her mind. I mean, to me, it was so horrible visiting her, and she kept going, who are you? Who are you? What are you doing here? You know, that is such, and they used to put her in straitjackets in a padded cell because they didn't know what they were dealing with. I'm talking about around about 1971, 72, where it started in her late teens. And it took so many years to balance the medication, to get the lithium levels right in her brain and that kind of stuff. So there is something that I'm going to say about that. At the moment, every now and then I see some of the people in our profession going, I'm bipolar. Then I go, I'm not too sure whether it's not just a mood swing, because being manic depressive, as they called it those days, is a very serious mental condition, which is 9 out of 10 times so heavily medicated to get the balances, the imbalances in the brain correctly. So we experienced that, and we also experienced an attempt of self-death in our home. So a lot of these things I could draw from the experience because we lived that. And I think that is what acting should be about, is you have to always go back to your own experiences and incorporate it into the work that you do. So having to play those parts, I had a bit of a history. There's one thing that I want to say here. I saw, even on university level, I would never forget, there was a beautiful actress there. She was so beautiful, it was when they put makeup on her, I kept going, you're interfering with perfection. And she was later on diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. But that I would walk into the dressing room and this beautiful woman standing there screaming at herself in the mirror, I am beautiful, I am beautiful, I'm beautiful. And nobody knew how to deal with that. Everybody in that department just pretended it didn't happen. And that was the sadness. I used to sit with her just out because she was so beautiful and she was so special. So that has evolved. You know, I'm talking about the early 70s. That is what, how many years ago? That's almost 50 years ago that I'm talking about. It has evolved, and thank God for that. You know, at least we can have this conversation.
Thank you so
But
much, Johan, for sharing. I just want to also welcome finally Pops Mohamed. Yay, here he is. Welcome, Pops. Everyone just introduce themselves briefly. If you want to just take this opportunity to just briefly introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you? All those existential crisis questions. Take it away, Pops.
Okay. First of all, my name is Pops Mohamed. My work, or what I'm trying to do, I have been trying to do and still trying to do, is to protect and preserve indigenous South African musical instruments on a modern platform. After having said that, it is to get to where I am now. But thanks God, I've managed with, and many other people who do have supported me over the years. And also in my research with other indigenous cultures, people have supported me. Things have happened,
Pops, you're just
good things,
breaking up
bad
a
things,
bit
and sad
there.
things, and all kinds of things that happened.
But I'm
But
sure we're
I
going to have the
kept on pushing
connection
and
back.
pushing and pushing today. And thanks to the people out there. Can you hear me now?
We'll get back to Pops now. Yes, there you go. Unfrozen.
Yes. So, yes, also I'm saying thank you to the people for the support that they've given me, especially South Africans, you know, to get me where I am now. I'm still not where I want to be, but so far I think my dream has been realized, and I thank you people for that kind of support. So basically that's who Pops Mohamed is. I started off as a pop artist. You know, I started off as a guitarist. Guitar is my first instrument. So for many, many, many years, I've been playing guitar as a lead guitarist in various bands, playing top 40 and things like that until June 1976 with the uprisings. That's when I had to take another look at my career. You know, I studied guitar and I studied piano and some other instruments, modern instruments. But when I saw June 1976, what's happening then, I saw South Africa going into a new phase, into a different direction. And I thought to myself, you know, if I want to be part of the new South Africa, which I could see coming, I don't think the world needs another piano player. I don't think the world needs another guitar player, you know, and things like that. And I had to think, what am I going to do to contribute to the new South Africa? And that's when I started realizing that I have to go back to my roots. And that led me to start looking at indigenous African instruments as part of the struggle in South Africa to preserve, because in those days, a lot of the whites, you know, they used the K word, you know, for when people are playing indigenous African instrument, they call it K instruments, you know. So I decided I want to preserve that. And I think I have managed so far. And I thank you people for supporting me for that. So here I am, Popsy.
Thank you, Pops. And also congratulations on being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by SAMA in 2023. That's a big one. And so what we're going to do is just carry on with the questions. So next up, Yvette Hardie. I just wanted to ask, tell us about your company Azitstaj, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm sure I'm not, and the Stand Foundation, which I know you and Sibongile collaborated on. and how this came into action and why. And thereafter, you can just tell us a little bit about your personal experience, your theatre work, and your work with children and teaching.
Thanks, Jani. I think I'm going to start at the end, actually, because I think I mentioned in my intro how theatre's been this bug in my life, but one of the first times that I really experienced any kind of a mental health challenge for myself was in fact entering the industry. It was really interesting. I'd been incredibly motivated and successful at school. I was winning drama prizes and all that kind of thing. And I was busy and I was active and I was starting Shakespeare festivals at my school and I was doing all sorts of things. Then I get to university and I have this opportunity to be with like-minded people and to work day in, day out on productions and on making things happen. And then I get into the industry. And in fact, picking up on what Johan was talking about, it was right at the dying days of PACT. So I also, my first job was for PACT, taking work into schools. But very shortly, PACT wasn't there anymore. And suddenly I was completely adrift in the space that I was unprepared for, that no one had, at university at that point, they didn't really think about career guidance. There was no sense of introducing you to what the theatre industry is, how it works. How do you get an agent? How do you audition properly? I mean, we did auditions, but it was nothing like the industry. And I remember this feeling of absolute powerlessness over my life, over what was going to be the next step. It was like I had this huge void after all this activity, all this passion that I wanted to kind of put into the world. I had no idea what to do with it. And I fell into a really bad depression. And I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get myself ready for auditions because I just felt so demotivated. Then I eventually got a job. I got a lead in a play, which was fantastic. It was at the Windy Brow, but I was with an incredibly manipulative and difficult director. I mean, I would say actually, the Me Too movement would have had a lot to say about his behavior. And so it was a very difficult situation as well. It was a very demeaning kind of situation. And thankfully, I had Norm Senene there with me, who was kind of holding my hand through this experience and kind of, helping me get through it. But it was not easy. And so I was having this sense of just worthlessness and questioning. I had such a sense of drive and direction. And then suddenly it all felt confused because it didn't seem to be going in the right direction. And actually, teaching, coming by accident into the National School of the Arts, at that stage it was still Joburg Art, Ballet, Drama and Music, and doing a few lessons a week initially with learners, and being able to share my love of what it was that I had spent my life, to that day kind of geared up about, with young people was what really brought me back into myself and what made me rediscover, actually, yes, I do love this thing. I do want to do this thing. I do want to find the way to do it. And I want to give other people the tools to be able to survive this industry, because it is not an easy space to be in. And, people always talk about the rejection and all of that, but I don't think people, if you haven't actually been in it, you don't understand what that does to your self-esteem. And you don't understand the kind of long-term implications of that consistent kind of sense of wearing you down. And then you've got the financial insecurity, and you've got, the lack of a future, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's an incredibly demanding space to be in. And I felt that I hadn't been properly prepared for it, and I wanted to make sure that other young people were properly prepared for it. So that's really what, kept me in education. And I was involved in teaching for some time, still doing freelance work and whatever, but really engaged with young people. And of course, their experiences opened my eyes to so many different realities as well, because we had kids at NSA who were, one young person was sleeping on the station. We discovered this after some weeks of very sort of poor behavior in class and whatever. We realized this person had nowhere to go. They had nowhere to go at night. They were sleeping on the station because they needed to be at rehearsals in the evening, and they couldn't get back home to their parents, and they hadn't told anybody. This was their situation. So when you're working with a range of different, very talented young people, but coming with different kinds of challenges from different parts of the world, from different parts of South Africa, different communities, it really gives you a sense of both the drive and the potential and the possibility in our industry, but also of the vulnerabilities, of the challenges, of the things that people are facing on a day-to-day. So in many ways, a lot of the work that I've done, like Assetej, has been about trying to make spaces that can support those people who are working in the arts. And Assetej is an organization that we started now in 2007. So what's that? It's almost 18 years ago now, 17 years ago. It's the South African Center of the International Association of Theatre for Children and Young People. And it brings together everybody who's working in the arts for children and young people, but it also gives them the supportive network, both inside our country through, what we've created here, but also into that broader global space. Because there are artists who are facing the same challenges in Brazil, in the UK, in America now, particularly, everywhere. And so it brings you into a kind of a family, into a kind of community where you can learn from one another, where you can support one another, where the collaboration is possible, and where we've been able to really, support artists to get the work out there to children and young people. So that's been really amazing. And then Stand Foundation, as you mentioned, that was created during COVID. And it was really a space to support artists who were, as you know, just devastated by the pandemic. Everything stopped. Festivals stopped, jobs were lost, contracts were cancelled, people had no money. We were organizing food parcels in Cape Town to get to artists. We were trying to, support artists to work online, to find ways to access the kind of PSP funding and that kind of thing that was available during that time, to give people opportunities for training that they could perhaps do at this time, so that when work did start up, they were ready to grab that work, So there was so much that needed to be done to sustain the arts. And we felt that theatre and dance, particularly being live art forms, were particularly hard hit. So the Stand Foundation is about sustaining theatre and dance specifically. And so it's also been very much about supporting community arts and community artists, where we also have a lot of struggle and a lot of, a lot of fantastic people doing wonderful work, which is not recognized and which is often not recompensed in any way. And so finding ways to support them. So yeah, I guess, for me, it really is, how can we as artists come together to support one another, understanding how difficult this industry is. And I really take my hat off to people like Jack, who've been, fighting on the regulation side, because I think that that's also so important. We need to build that embedded infrastructure, in a sense, so that we can all be more secure. But we can also connect with one another and use networks like Assetej, like the Stand Foundation, to create those support structures.
I want to say something, because people don't really understand. They don't understand the impact of this unstable work conditions that we work under. There's an irregular income, there's no job security, and there's very few foundations. There's the TBF, the Theatre Benevolent Fund. They can also just support people as far as they can, people somehow have this image in their heads after seeing, I think the movie was called Quartet with Maggie Smith, that we all retire in some villa somewhere and we sip tea from the morning until evening. We don't have a plan B. And that is disastrous. A very dear colleague of mine and a very close friend of mine many years ago phoned his brother and he said, I've run out of coffee. I don't have sugar in the house. I don't have milk. I don't have bread. And the next moment, his brother heard a gunshot. And that is what people don't understand, that it undermines your self-worth to such an extent that you feel you're worthless. This has become senseless. And that is the tragedy about our industry, is that there is not a plan B, not in this country. There isn't a plan B, you know. So we have to take care of one another. I saw a singing teacher calling on all her pupils, and I know she trained most of the opera company with PACT, saying, I'm in desperate need. And I don't know whether anyone of them made a contribution to her life. I see actors saying, I'm being kicked out of my space. I'm going to become homeless. There is just not that kind of support. And the only thing we can do is emotionally, because most of us are in the same situation where we really can't dish out a fortune to help our fellow performers. And that's the beauty of being part of this community.
No,
To
it's
address that, it is so
sustainability.
important. It is so important to look at
Thank you
that.
so much, Johan, for that as well. And Yvette, thank you for that, sharing that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
now we are going to hear from Jack, which is perfect timing. So, Jack, without further ado, can you explain to us the work that you do and your fight for legislation, which directly would answer what the concerns that both Yvette and Johan just raised will nurture, I feel.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Yvette, for acknowledging the work that we do at Saga. And I want to thank Johan also for describing with such honesty the inevitable disaster that will, and I must stress this again, that will unfold for every artist in this country. And this is the reality of
Jack, you're just freezing there, but I'm sure it's going to... In South Africa,
okay.
we have a lot of load shedding. It's not load shedding, hopefully. Oh, there it
Has
is.
it?
There, it's been, no,
All right.
it's back to normal.
Okay, I just yeah, I also want to mention how the regulatory environment that is completely lacking in South Africa in our creative sector connects with our state of mind and our state of being and our mental health. And you know, the work that we do as performers is enormously intuitive, cerebral. We create ethereal things. We create something out of nothing, which is the true value of what the performer is. It's the true gift of what we have to offer. And you'll find in the most cultured societies, the ones that are able to tell the stories of their heritage and their history, in those cultures, in those countries, you'll find a deep appreciation of their artists and the way in which artists are treated as professionals, which is why it's so surprising and it's so anomalous how in South Africa it is almost, and this is something that Yvette spoke about earlier, where we are talking about the difficulty of managing life as a professional performer in South Africa. It's almost as if we have created additional layers of difficulty for our performers by the failure to provide social security and by the failure to provide a residual income for the exploitation of our work. And the most alarming thing to me is the complete absence of any form of care, any form of empathy that is supposed to come from our political leaders. It's absolutely astonishing to me how we have not been able to develop the kind of regulatory structures that exist everywhere else in the world. Let's absorb this for a minute. Let us take a moment to appreciate that what Saga is fighting for, what all the performers on this call are fighting for, is nothing new in the world. It already exists. It is already in practice. There are decades and decades of very well-cultured, well-tested safety systems for performers that exist in the global north, all the way from the US and Canada, all through Europe. The Swedish Actors Union, for example, is more than 130 years old. You've got unionization, regulation, protection for performers all the way down to South America, all the way through Australia and New Zealand, even in Africa. And there is South Africa, standing on its own, that has absolutely betrayed, in every sense, the performers, the musicians, the composers, the writers, the actors that have been telling the stories of South Africa. We have been abandoned by our political leaders, which is why I cannot underscore the urgency with which I go about my work. The biggest part of my career is behind me. Why do I fight? I fight because I need, for the next generation of talent, to be given some reassurance that somebody stood up for them. Somebody stood up for them. Somebody took the fight forward and created the rules that we didn't have to protect us. Yes, it is a lonely place, but it is a sacrifice that I've had to reconcile within myself. In our journey, and Johan and Pops will remember these moments very well, in our journey towards democracy, there were people who made far greater sacrifices. Far greater sacrifices than you and I can even contemplate. But they were necessary sacrifices because we all got to benefit from the liberation, from the freedom, from the democracy. It's strange, though, just taking a look at what it means to be a performer. We have achieved our democracy. We have achieved our constitutional rights, our Bill of Rights. And the freedoms that we enjoy in our Bill of Rights include such incredible things as the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the freedom of association, and the ultimate freedom, the bottom line, the freedom of all freedoms lies with performers, because we have the freedom to be. We can be whoever we want to be. We can be whoever we want, whenever we want, whatever it is that our minds can conceive, we have the freedom to be. And yet, our political leaders, our executive branch, have failed us, even in achieving the most basic rights, the rights of protection. So yes, there is a deep sense of abandonment with performers in this country. And it feels as if the loyalty that we've had for our country was not reciprocated. Our deep and abiding love for telling the stories of South Africa, of the people of South Africa, has gone unrecognized. And this is, it's being in that relationship of unrequited love, Jani. When you know you give your heart and your soul, you've given everything. And the people on this call have given their lives to this career that we love so much. All we asked was for social protection.
I think it's...
Sorry, there was a call that came through. I had to cut it off. All we asked was for social protection, some royalty right, so that the work that we do can continue to generate a residual income for us. And the longer we worked, the harder we worked over the years, we will be able to build on that residual income, so that as we go into our dotage, we'll be able to rely on the work that we have done in the course of a career, so that we are earning a residual income from our own work. We are not going cap in hand. We are not taking a begging bowl to government, as so many people do, looking for grants, looking to create a new organization, looking to establish a new political party that will operate for a fortnight and then disappear, and so has the grant money. No, we are asking for our just dues. So there is an enormous sense of of betrayal, an enormous sense of loneliness, knowing that there is, and you'll understand the reason I say an inevitable result when we look at Mam Nandi Nyembe, who was recently in the media, and she was expressing with deep regret the sense that she felt that she had earned her place in the industry. Why did we not give her the structures within which she could earn from her own work, from her own body of work? What we had instead was a minister who stepped up to put himself on video to say, Mam Nandi, I am giving you money from my own pocket. And anyone who thinks that that was somehow, for the benefits of Mam Nandi, I question how you were raised and the decency with which you were taught. When you give charity, try not to position yourself in the foreground. Try not to show yourself as the virtuous one. When you are merely exploiting the photo opportunity to leverage your own power at the expense of a person who has lost their dignity. Try not to do that. This is not a lesson that I want to give to our minister, but perhaps I am the one to do it. So in a sense, we are being taken advantage of. We are the ones being made fools of, while we are the ones who tell the stories of South Africa. We are the ones who are abandoned, and then we are the ones who end up like fools when our political leaders decide to put us in their selfies.
That's so tragic.
Thank you so much, Jack, for that powerful.
Absolutely.
Guys, we're running out of time a bit. Johan, do you want to quickly say something?
I just want to say I have such
book.
respect for what you do, Jack. I have to tell you, because it's such a complicated industry, and you're trying to actually just regain dignity for all of the people that they see on TV. I mean, the public have got no idea what we go through. They have no idea what happens behind the lens. They have no idea, and how complicated and how ungrateful it is. So yeah, thank you.
And that musicians and actors and dancers and artists are real people. There's a real human being behind the favorite character that you adore, with real life struggles and real life challenges. Thank you so much, Jack. You really made my blood boil, and passionate speaker. Pops, to move on to you, I'd like to just hear a bit about your international collaborations, which was exciting. You once spoke about working with the legendary Johnny Clegg, and how, yes, talk a little bit about mental health in your industry of music production and that sphere of life.
And just a little correction there. I didn't work with Johnny Clegg.
Oh.
We knew each other. No, I haven't worked with him.
Oh, you just knew each other. Sorry.
We knew each other, yes.
Okay.
I mean, what Jack just said, and Yvette, I mean, it's almost like, what more have I got to say, after Jack's, presentation about how artists are being treated today. I mean, talking about the minister who had offered this money to Mam Nandi, but to put himself on the pedestal. Do you know what I'm saying? And yet, in the same time, again, it's been done again for artists. Recently, there was an announcement that the minister is going to give 50,000 rand to all the artists. It's like a Christmas bonus. And as sad as it is, You know, artists are so vulnerable, so gullible, knowing that, I mean, how dare he do this? I mean, you know, saying, I'm giving this one so much, I'm giving that one so much, I'm giving that one so much, and it might be more. You know what I'm saying? And even after having said that, it's like the artist feel he shouldn't have mentioned my name. Do you know what I'm saying? Why doesn't he just do it privately and just say, look, this is what I'm doing, or just give it to us? And after having said that, artists are so vulnerable that they take it because there is no other income. They take it. And I don't want to mention names. I mean, talking about mental health, psychological health, and all those kind of stuff. I know of artists who have had strokes because of this thing happening to artists, not having work, you know, difficulties, you know. So even myself, I mean, I'm talking about my own self as well as an artist. I also have these problems. I'm facing these problems that Jack has just mentioned. I do have mental health problems. I do have psychological problems. You know, I'm not hiding these things as a result of what artists are going through. Do you know what I'm saying? And it hurts me, you know, if you think that we have done so much for this country, working as ambassadors, going abroad, traveling with people like the San people, trying to promote their culture.
Just freezing on the most exciting part.
Yes, absolutely.
The San
Thank-
people, the original people of Africa. But I just wanted to add as well that in our industry, if you build a name, the path of building that name and then people using that as some sort of poster to get influence. And when I worked with child actors and they make a huge break and they become a child celebrity, that child suffers the most of mental health issues because of loneliness, being used, not having real friends, people always wanting to be your friend because your name is big and they can borrow and be like a parasite on your success. So it becomes this horrific thing of a celebrity status, the illusion around that, and the juxtaposed reality of being lonely and feeling even more so abandoned by, and the misunderstanding that the public has as to how big your name is, that you're a real person. And often I've seen many celebrities that start with a wonderful talent. Johan, me and you always speak about this. And then they become a slave to the public or their fans and change, and they're disloyal to their own artistical integrity just to be able to pay the house bond. We don't have a sustainable income. We don't have a real job. When I started studying drama, my own father said to me, go find a real job. What is this acting stuff? And in a way, he was right. He was just trying to look out for me. I now have to teach Afrikaans drama, do a lot of extra things to sustain my art, because you're not always going to, you suffer, you go for so many auditions, you get way more rejection than any lecturer at college can prepare you for. And you got to not take it personally. So that erodes your self-esteem. No, you're not good enough. You have to really radically self-care as a comeback to just feel like a human being still, to protect this artistical inner child of yours, ever wanting to play.
You're so right. That's one of the things that I want to talk about just very briefly, but if I keep going on to that.
Sure, Johan, because I think we lost Pops. He had low bandwidth.
When I work with children, I try and nurture the inner voice, because it is interesting that you see people in this industry fall apart because they cannot silence the negativity of their own inner voice. But it's not something that happens spontaneously. That is the thing that has been, I don't know, it's because of neglect of the inner child that we have, that a lot of people in our industry go astray, in the sense that I had my dearest friend, he passed away 2 years ago, who I still believe is one of the most talented human beings I've ever met on this planet, couldn't silence the negative voice of a lecturer of his from 40 years back. Because at university, and that's the one thing that has to change, but I think it happens everywhere in the industry, is you walk through the door and the first thing these lecturers say to you is, we're going to break you down and then we're going to build you up. They do so much damage because not one of them has got the slightest inclination how to build up. It's very easy to demolish a building, but to actually reconstruct it takes skill and takes time, and it also takes nurturing. I saw that friend of mine who had an illustrious career. Let me not make a mistake about that, because he was so versatile. He could act in comedy, he was as good in drama, could do stand-up comedy, he could sing, he could dance, he could do everything that I believe that lecturer didn't have the capacity of doing himself. And what that lecturer had to do was diminish his talent and diminish it, to bring it down to a level that the lecturer could actually cope with the size of that talent. And I saw him regress as years went on. He became more and more and more insecure because he couldn't silence that voice. And that is terrible. That's why when I work with kids, even when I adjudicate, I always say to them, listen, I'm here to tell you what you do right, because by the time I arrive, your parent, your tutor, everybody told you exactly what you do wrong. You know when you do things wrong. But very seldom they tell you what you do right. And that's why I work with the National Ice Stateford Academy, because that's exactly their attitude is, let's create articulate human beings. Let's heal them. Let's keep them in a safe place, because the knocks are going to come in this industry and in this life, whether you want it or not. And criticism, especially, and that's something I just wanted to touch on.
And the competitiveness.
But also the public scrutiny of what we do, and especially now with social media, people can become so destructive.
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to say this, one of the people that I love, I always called him my brother from another mother, because we were born in the same year, and we would have these long conversations about apartheid, because he came from one world and I came from the opposite world. And when he became outspoken about an issue, what did Patrick Shai do? And it was pressure from on social media. It was public scrutiny. He terminated his life. That is so unfair. And it was because the bombardment he suffered from social media, from people that didn't know him. They didn't know. He might sound like a very strong person, but he was a fragile human being that has gone through so much suffering in his life. And he was a womanizer, and he was the first one to acknowledge that, and he wanted to change the conversation. And then the whole community turned on him, and he found only one way out, and that is horrific. I think it's one of the worst things that can happen to us, is where you go into such deep despair because of criticism, because of the load you have to carry the whole time of the whole world watching you and the whole world disapproving or approving of you. It is not a very kind world we live in as entertainers, because people sit there and they pull an entertainer apart on social media, and they keep going, can you do that? I also say to the parents, I say to them, if you can do it better than your child, then go and stand on the stage so the child can judge what you do, because parents are where it
Sorry,
starts
Johan,
going wrong.
I see Pops is back now. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
darling.
No. I just thought we have to talk about that.
Yes, no, it's
Public
very
scrutiny
important
is
that
so horrific.
cyberbullying.
It
Um,
is. It's
Pops, are
really-
you able to hear us? It's that, but we've also come to the end, guys, of this wonderful, valuable, and a thing that we should have more. Discussion about extremely important issues. I just want to also give the audience, Zach, if you want to take over to the Q&A in the
Sure.
comment section, feel
Sure.
free to do so.
Sure. So there were a few people that just put their hand up for some questions. I am not sure if put them up, but I do have a question of myself actually. I wanted to ask you all just a basic question. And thank you for being part of this conversation. From your experience, what's one thing you've learned about staying grounded and true to yourself while working in the entertainment industry?
That's a
So,
good positive question, is the solutions. I'll start off, if you don't mind, Zach. For me, I'm very grateful. I have to thank Jack Devnarain specifically, because in lockdown, I lost my business because we couldn't teach the children anymore. There was no sustainable income. That was the reason for me. And I went into a dark, deep depression and reached out to Jack. And you were really supportive, and I really thank you, because it saved my life. I had suicidal ideation. Is that how you say it? Yes. And it pulled me through to know that I'm not alone. So the community of people, each and every one of you here, discussing these issues alone, you know you're not alone, and you push through. You win through it, and there's nothing as resilient and strong if you get to that other side and survive something like that, a dark spell that is caused by all these things we've discussed, especially you, Johan. Thank you for that. For me, what helped me was to compromise and work in other fields so that I have a sustainable income, but to make time for the things, the art that I really want to do, because I also don't want to be an emotional prostitute and just do what my agent wants me to do. So to do the theater that I love to do and work it out somewhere, and find things like yoga, meditation, and community, actors, other artists, and befriend, spend time with them rather than those narcissistic critics, rather than to look online at negative things or anything negative. Focus on the things that build me. Having that courage to have that self-esteem, that's what I would say worked for me. Yvette, do you want to share things that work with for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would agree with you. And I think also, you know, finding that thing that allows you to breathe. You know, it's different for every person, but maybe it's music. For me, it's walking on the mountain. Someone was saying the other day, they were saying, you know, I was having such a hectic day, and then I saw one of your pictures of, you know, your walk, and it was almost like I could breathe in the same air you were breathing in. And I have to say that when I am really, really stressed, I just walk more. You know, that's what works for me. I need to walk. But it's finding that thing that really makes you feel like you connected, you are focusing on something that is not the stress, the, you know, what the situation that you're facing, but allows you time to breathe, to think, and to reconnect with yourself. So find that thing. It could be cooking, it could be listening to music, it could be walking, it could be whatever it is. It's very unique to us, but I think we all have it as human beings. Yeah. And
Thanks,
community. I
Yvette.
totally agree with you, Jani.
Or
Yeah.
hugging a tree. I do hug trees.
I love
You-
cooking as well. But Johan, maybe on your side?
Let's hear what works for you, dear.
Do you know what? I think what gets me through the day is I have this rule for myself, and that is that I have to learn something new every day. So I go on a mission to find something that excites me, that regenerates me. I've learned so many strange skills, and I think that's why I've reinvented myself so many times. Okay, part of that is economical, you know. I had to reinvent myself. I've actually done so many things that I've selectively sent people my CV because I think they might think I fabricated this, but it is because I have a morbid curiosity. That's the one thing. I think my greatest talent is that I have an ability to learn new things. Even if it's a bad habit, at least I can go at the end of the day and say I learned something new. But that, I think, is what sustains me. I'm now 70 years old, you know, so I still have a morbid curiosity of what lies ahead of me. And I think that is what drives me forward the whole time is even if it's just, the other day I saw Jamie Oliver to thicken a stew, he puts in some baked beans and he uses a blender and it thickens. I go, why didn't I ever think of it? It's simple little things. I mean, I even not too long ago learned to crochet 2 blankets. I've never had any desire to crochet whatsoever or knit, but I went, what does it feel like? A lot of the things that I do is my friends say, oh, I want to write a book. And then I go, I wonder what that feels like. And then I sit myself down and I write a book. Do you understand? It is, I'm feeling driven. I want to chase an experience. And I think that is what keeps me sane, and that also keeps my sense of humor going most of the time.
Thank you, my darling Johan. And Sibongile, if I'm saying your name right. Otherwise, you're going to throw me with a shoe.
I don't know if it's possible for people to really learn how to say my name correctly, but yeah, it's Sibongile. That's the correct pronunciation of my name. It's Sibongile. Even Black people don't know how to pronounce my name properly. They call me Sibongile. It's not Sibongile, it's Sibongile. We have been grateful. What sustains me is I have come to a point where I like me, and I like the peculiarity of who I am. I like the craziness, and I like the fact that I do believe that I was created for a different era. I'm ahead of my time. And I'm glad that Jack is the one who raised the issues he did, because when I raised them, I almost got killed. So it's okay now for someone else to raise the issues. And I'm comfortable to say, I am crazy enough to put myself in dangerous positions and situations, but that's because I am peculiar and I'm comfortable with that. And that has given me a lot of peace, because trying to conform and be like everybody else is what led to a lot of the depression. And because of it, the comparisons and everything that comes with that. And what Johan spoke about, the breaking down of people in the learning spaces, is what nearly made me stop singing opera, because it was horrific. You would come in, sing a beautiful role and do it well, and either the director or somebody else will try and break you down. But I continued, and I got to a point where I just said, it's okay for me to be peculiar. It's okay for me to be strange. It's okay for me to be a nerd, because you will be given labels, and it's okay to be that one who is not like everybody else. And if it makes you a pioneer and an innovator in a space, let them follow. Today we have hundreds of beautiful opera singers, Black kids who came out of nowhere because I was not afraid to be peculiar. The other 2-3 people who came before me tried to conform to somebody else's standards of what somebody who looks like me is supposed to be as an opera singer. And I said, no, it's actually not. And it's okay for me to be peculiar. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said that one of the critiques that came out when I did Marriage of Figaro, singing the Contessa, And it was this glowing review, but then the one criticism was, but she's Black. And I'm like, if that's the only thing you gotta say negative about me, I'll take the negativity. I'm okay to be Black.
I love Sibongile. You are fabulously peculiar. And that is from the biggest weirdo you've ever met. Let's hear from Jack. What is your secret? We're all curious to know that one.
Yeah, I don't have secrets. When I came onto the acting scene, remember I came out of the police force, and within a few weeks I was on set on a fast moving train with some of South Africa's most incredible, most recognizable, and most celebrated performers. You know, and just to be in the same scene with people like Keke Semoko and Robbie Whitehead, Michelle Boertes, the late Michelle Boertes. It's just, it took my breath away to think that somebody was impertinent enough to answer my prayers. How dare they? Now I have to take responsibility for what comes next. And I was in these scenes with all these people, and I was feeling, I never felt more inadequate, firstly. And it created in me the feelings that most performers are very familiar with, which is anxiety and self-doubt. These are things you learn to live with. But I discovered a trick, the most incredible trick, the most liberating secret. And I'll happily share this with you because I want you to use it yourselves. It was when in a scene, feeling that sense of doubt and uncertainty and anxiety, I said to myself, I'm in a scene with another person. I'm giving the entire scene to the other person. The scene is not about me. Let them carry the anxiety. Let them carry the self-doubt. And I liberated myself by simply mentally passing the scene on to the other person. And that started a little journey. What it did is that it forced me to confront myself. How many times do I refer to myself? How many times do I say, I think, I felt, I did. I am so important. And it suddenly made me aware of how self-obsessed we are as a species. We are so utterly self-obsessed. And so I check in with myself all the time. And I question myself gently. And I say, why am I doing this? Who's it for? What does it change? Am I running to something, or am I running away from something? And I'll always check in and check my motives and try to make sure that my motives are aligned with my values. And if my motives are not aligned with my values, I have betrayed myself. And so I must recheck and change the way I behave or change the way I think.
That's beautiful. To thine own self be true. Spoken by Mr. Shakespeare in the 1600s, long ago. Thank you, Jack. That was so nice. Pops, I see you back in time to just tell you're muted. Just unmute yourself.
There we go.
There you
I'm
go.
so sorry. My
No
internet
problem.
just went. My internet.
We want to hear your final words of what works for you to help you with your things and tricks of the trade that helps Pops Mohamed to have positive days and to get through the stormy weathers.
I'm very fortunate that I'm living with my daughter and her two sons. My late wife passed away a few years ago, and we have 3 children. One has passed on, but out of the 3 children, I have 7 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. So every day I'm with my 2 grandchildren, and the other 2, the other 2 little ones always come to my house every single day. They just walked out now. And I think that's what puts me through. That actually helps me get through things. That keeps me positive. They keep me busy. And also having discussions like this also helps people out there. I mean, Jack has just hit it right on he's just nailed it. And also Yvette as well. I mean, Yvette said so many things that made so much, like I've been through that. We've seen it all happen, and what am I getting for what I have sacrificed? We can't point fingers to anyone to say, you are responsible for what I've done. The world owes me nothing. I owe it to myself for my own happiness. And I find my happiness in my family. And irrespective of what's going around us, we still have to respect the values of other artists, performers, actors, ballet dancers, you just name it. People are going through difficult times. I know so many people who are going through difficult times. Having difficulty through, and try to help wherever I can. I try to give advice wherever I can. But like I say, I'm getting my happiness for my family, and they are the people that keeps me strong. And from that, something from nothing.
Just as you say,
Like
beautiful
now I'm
things.
sitting in my
It's
studio.
freezing again, but thank you so much
Just
for
cut,
that.
yeah.
I
Shame.
felt we've come to the end. Just to sum up, we all seem to talk about the radical self-care and nurturing. For
Yes.
me, in conclusion, I try to give myself the self-acceptance, the self-love that I seek from others. Do not be a people's pleaser, because there's an element of being an actor and wanting the applause.
Yeah.
But Zach, I'm going to hand it over to you for closing.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Well, I want to thank you all for participating in today's webinar. It has been an incredible, meaningful experience, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate the time, thought, and the heart of each of you contributed to this conversation. So, to Pops, Jack, I know so many Sibongiles, but Simonile, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. Johan and
Sibongile. I rehearsed it while I was on mute. Sibongile.
yeah, I am so sorry for if I butchered your name. I really am. But Johan and Yvette, thank you. Your insights have allowed us to explore an industry that is often admired from a distance, but really examined from the inside. So thank you once again. Today's discussion reminded us that behind every performance, production, or creative piece, there is a real human being, a person with pressure, responsibilities, and expectations. What we have created here is an inclusive, respectful, and essential conversation about care, mental health, and community. This webinar is not the end, it is the beginning. We hope it sparks more discussion, advocates for change, and ultimately leads to real action regarding how mental health is treated and supported in the entertainment industry. On behalf of the Global Mental Health Peer Network, thank you once again for being with us. We hope today provided you with something valuable to take away, whether it's a new perspective, a moment of reflection, or a sense of possibility. Please take care, stay well, and thank you again for being part of this important step forward. We will see you in the next one. Thank you very much, everyone. I really, really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach. And I want to thank everyone for this. It has been incredible. It was like a mystical journey. And I think we should continue with these talks so that we could understand where we're coming from and where we're going to. Also to encourage young people, we should invite more younger people to these kind of webinars so that they could understand and learn from us, because we want to pass knowledge to the young ones. Thank you so very much.
No, 100%,
everyone.
and that's what
Thank
we
you.
want to do as well. So thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate this.
Thank
Please
you,
enjoy the
Zach.
rest of your day.
And Zach, I'm proud of you because you're overcoming your personal issues by just reading your thing and doing your thing. So I'm
thank
very
you.
proud of you as well. Thank you to each and every speaker
Yes.
here today for your time and your valuable insights.